a big trauma, and you know, as part of their organization as well as for the book, you know, it requires them to tell that story, you know, over and over.
Right.
So, you know, do you feel like that retelling shackles a person more in his grief, or at some level lets it go?
No, that's a good question. And the answer is I don't know, which is probably maybe becoming more and more part of my lexicon and admitting to the fact that we don't know is a powerful thing. But I do know this, that the day they told me the story, I thought they were only telling it for the very first time. I felt, because I was hearing it, and I was hearing it as if it had been done for the very first time. The truth was that they had told it already 2 times that day, and they'd told it thousands of times in the years previously. But John Berger, another great author who Alexander published, John Berger says, never again will a single story be told as if it were the only one. And one of the things that we have to do, both as writers and within our cultures, is to tell the story over and over again, because once is never quite enough. I was at a spectacular talk about the partition just about earlier today, and just hearing those stories and the need for us to tell these stories over and over again is sort of overwhelming.
Your first book, you know, which won the National Book Award, and it was an incredible read. That the Great World Spin. You have this character there called Apeirogon, and then the story of Rami and Bassam as well. What I see across your books is very empathetic characters. So is the reason for that, like the protagonist being so empathetic, that you want to nudge or you want to like suggest to the reader to kind of think in those terms, or you know, did those characters come about just in service of the story? Sorry, Rob.
Whoa. I think the only things worth doing are the things that might potentially break your heart, right? The only things worth doing are the things that might be inexecutable in certain ways. So in terms of storytelling, you go to the deepest, furthest part of where the story will take you. You don't always know what it is or how you're going to get there. The big lie, especially at festivals like this, is that writers know what they're doing. We don't. Well, certainly I don't. Okay, I can't speak for. That's the other thing. You can't speak for all writers. You can't speak for. They're literally they're part of the Apeirogon. But most of the time I don't know what I'm doing. But I hope I'm going to get somewhere that I recognize. Wow, that I went on that journey. And it's a little pretentious, so forgive me, but I think it's important that Dostoevsky has a really interesting quote that he says that to be too acutely conscious is to be diseased. So in other words, when you overthink something, you can bring an illness to your work. I've been there, and you know, people talk about the unexamined life not being worth living, but also the over-examined life might not be worth living as well. But I will say, in relation to you know, trying to get into these characters who are, I suppose, deeply empathetic, is because I would like to be like them. I'm not, but part of my job is to look at these people, men, women, who are doing extraordinary things in the world, and try to let other people dwell inside their stories, so that we can disrupt the world a little bit, and not make it quite as simple as certain people want it to be.
So, like one of the characters, like Apeirogon, for example, like did you know so what I found interesting was that he was the main character for the book for the first 100 pages or so, 120 pages, and then he suddenly dies. Sorry to
spoiler alert.
And I was, yeah, it was a very like surprising moment. Like I almost wanted to ask the medics to one more time, check his pulse, and he can't die. He's like the empathetic protagonist who's supposed to last the book. So like, was that something that kind of came up as you wrote the book, or?
Yeah, he died on me, and I was like, shit. This is not supposed to happen. This is not supposed. He was in a hospital. He was in there's a crash, and I'm like, no, I can't do this like straight away. But then, the further I got into it, I realized that the whole novel was about the recreation of this person through other people's